Tyson up on the screen. Hey, Terril.
Hey, Dustin.
Hey, so we're going to walk through very quickly here, 17 minutes, the data jobs report. Also, we'll be sharing these key data points on our LinkedIn page afterwards. So we're going to go quicker than we were thinking. But I'm going to present the data. I'll give you a really quick background on it. But Terril is also going to provide some commentary on what we're seeing in here. So Terril has been someone that I've gotten to be friends with off of LinkedIn. LinkedIn creates real relationships. We've met up via video calls, and it's been fun to see Terril become a manager in the field too. So thanks, Terril, for joining.
Oh, no, hey, glad to be a part of it. I appreciate the invite. This is a great event with tons of great information. So glad to contribute to it.
All right, cool. This is going to be fun. Thanks, Terril. All right, so I'm going to pull up the latest data jobs report. So I presented the last one back at our August event, and I have updated the data since then. Actually, the data is going to be current through February 20th. Quick overview. I started this back in 2019. Why did I start it? I started it because I was a manager at the time in analytics, and things were hitting an inflection point where folks internal to my organization, outside of the organization, were asking me questions like, Dustin, it seems like this data field, is really becoming something. Like, how do I get into it? How do I transition into a role in it? What are the kinds of skills I need to learn? And I really, being a data person, I wanted to get a data-driven perspective on answering those questions. So thus this report was born. And what I do is I've continued this since 2019, every 6 months or so, I collect data on 100 job postings, and these are data analytics related titles. You can see in the final slide in the appendix, I'll share this out on our LinkedIn page as well, the types of titles I'm looking at. But I do want to add that note that these are data analytics related roles that we're looking at. I do want to expand the scope of this report, but a lot of folks do start into data analytics roles when they get into the field. That's what this data is around. Now that the field is growing, we do need to expand the scope of it, but data analytics roles are what we're looking at here. I find these on corporate and major career sites, and I've added the last 100 positions to this last report. We're going to take a look at the results of this right now. But first, I want to take a step back and just share the results from a poll that I put out on LinkedIn a few days ago. And I said, this was kind of for fun. I said, is SQL the top skill in data analytics? We're going to find out and touch on this in a little bit here. But 74% said yes. So we'll see how this pans out. Before I get to the data, I just wanted to kind of cut to the chase here, which is good because we're a little behind on time. But 5 overall trends that I saw are that we have some new functions and new titles gaining steam. So I'm seeing HR and people analytics titles pop up more frequently, as an example. I'm still seeing a lot of skills overall in those 100 postings that I reviewed. We'll take a look at what that looks like, but I'm also seeing some top heaviness to that. I'm seeing a few skills really pop to the top that are mentioned kind of across the board in most of the positions. So I think we want to make sure we know what those are. Industry experience, not always listed as a requirement, but is still, we talked about this at the last session, but is still showing up very, very regularly as a preferred skill. So, in the job section where you see, or in the job posting where you see, ideal candidate would have this preferred skill. Industry experience is listed on there. Data storytelling. Cole, who authored the Storytelling with Data series, opened our last Data Career Summit, the keynote around storytelling with data. Well, data storytelling is kind of emerging as a new skill category. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And we're actually seeing, this is probably going to be bad news, another downer. I guess I'm bringing some downers to the event today, but trying to bring an honest perspective. Fewer positions are offering remote work options than what we saw last time, which is actually the opposite of what we thought was going to happen. So I'm going to start with the preferred skills. So there's a section that shows usually required skills and then preferred skills in a job posting. I put a word cloud together to show all of the preferred skills that were mentioned in this last report. Bigger the text, the more times it was mentioned in job postings. You can see industry experience pops out really heavily.
And Dustin, just to add into that real quick, I know we are moving at a speed light pace, but Industry experience, that's a huge thing that's preferred because if you think about it, that really just means more opportunity for people who are trying to get into it. Dustin just mentioned more industries are getting involved: HR analytics, people analytics, restaurants, different uh, industries are getting involved in the data game, which means there's more opportunities that your industry experience will easily translate. So if you worked at a restaurant forever and now the restaurant is saying we want to be data driven like Netflix and Google, well, you have the industry experience. You'll know kind of what they're looking for. So the fact that this is a preferred skill is a great help if you're looking to transition because you may have more to offer than what you may think.
For sure. Love it. Thank you, Terrell. Um, Moving over to the required skills. So I put together same word cloud, similar word cloud, but just on the required skills. So, when you go into job posting, you also see what's required. These are the hard skills. All of them mentioned in this last report. There's a lot of them, 137 unique ones, actually. But there's some that pop to the top, and we're going to add some context to that word cloud by taking a deeper look at it. If I was actually just to chart them out and take a look at how many times each hard skill mentioned was mentioned, you can see that there's 10 or 11 here that I've got highlighted that really popped to the top, some in kind of the medium range, and then there's a long tail down here. There was 490 total mentions of hard skills across the 100 positions I looked at. 137 of those were unique. But if you take a look at this is something to really keep an eye on. 75% of those of the skills that were mentioned, 75% of these unique skills drove only 25% of the total mentions. So what we've got is these skills up here at the top being mentioned pretty frequently across the positions that I looked at. And then you've got some positions that are listing out some really unique ones. In some cases, maybe even up to 20 skills on a posting. But we really want to make sure we stay focused on these top skills, especially if you're looking to transition to or get into the field. Terril, I'm curious, do these top ones that we see mentioned most frequently, do these resonate with you? Is it what you would expect to see?
Most definitely what I would expect to see. I think, we talk a lot about hard skills and the tools, and so it's great to see which ones are kind of the most important ones: SQL, Excel, and then Tableau or Power BI, right? Which really just comes down to using visualization to visualize what you're finding. And so this definitely aligns. I mean, even my team personally, the team that I run, we mainly use SQL, Excel, and Tableau. Those are the three tools we use the most consistently, and those are senior analysts who are using those tools, right? So not even just entry level roles, but your mid to senior roles that are utilizing those three main skills, whereas some of those other ones we may not even touch. So focusing on that top part of this chart, the SQL, Excel, Tableau, Power BI, it can help you a lot into getting your foot in the door, but even moving forward, because those tools alone can get a lot of the work done in the analytics space.
For sure. Totally agree. Had similar experience myself. All right. Now, looking at it slightly differently yet, if we were to take the skills that we saw pop and then look at what the trend over time is in terms of how many times they were mentioned in job postings, what we're looking at here is the percentage of postings in each report that contained a given skill. And so when we start with SQL, which was the number one skill, so, the folks that answered yes to that LinkedIn question that I put out, that poll question, they were right, at least from a data analytics related, job title standpoint. SQL did appear most frequently. In fact, in this last report, it appeared 52% in 52% of the positions. So 52% of the positions that I reviewed for this last report had SQL mentioned as a required skill, and that's up 20% since the first half of 2020. So over the last 3 years, there's a 20% increase in terms of the positions requiring SQL. And then we'll burn through these really quickly. Excel actually flipped to number 2. It was number 3 last time. Terril and I were talking before the summit about, I mentioned that I had created a series of Excel tutorial videos at one point in my career. And I thought, I'm going to stop doing this because I think these data visualization tools are going to take over. Well, I was wrong. In the last 3 years here, we've actually gone from 20% of the data analytics positions mentioning Excel as a required skill to 37%, continuing a long-term upward trend. Tableau and Power BI are the next ones. No surprise there. So 2 data visualization tools. Stats, general statistics knowledge, mentioned in a variety of different ways in 23% of position postings. Python and R, 19 and 16%. Now that would look different if we were looking at, data science roles, machine learning roles, things like that. But these are data analyst positions. So still about a fifth of them, a little bit less, looking for Python and R experience. Industry experience, this one has trended down a little bit as that industry experience has shifted over, as we just saw, to being a preferred skill. So shifting a little bit away from required to preferred. My take on this is companies are looking for the hard skills, the true technical skills first, and then definitely liking it if you've been in the industry, that they're recruiting within. So for example, if you know SQL, Excel, Tableau, Power BI, and stats, and you're in the financial services industry, and you want to apply for financial analyst position, if you've got that experience and you've got some of these technical skills that they're looking for some in-depth financial analysis using data visualization tools and things like that, it's only going to help that you have the industry experience. And then a new skill category down here, I inserted this into the report. Data storytelling has actually been popping up as a formal hard skill requirement in more and more positions. And in fact, it was actually mentioned in some way or another, storytelling with data storytelling in 12% of position postings. So new skill category created. PowerPoint, about 10%. We're going to take a look at what happens if we group those together. Project management, and then other data visualization tools. What I wanted to do was show what the top three would be if we actually combined all those data visualization tools together, because there's a lot out there. And the SQL is still obviously number one at 52%. But if we combine all the data visualization tools together, so if we take Tableau, Power BI, and any of the other data viz tools that are mentioned, there's actually 47% of the positions mention some type of data visualization tool as a requirement. And actually, you'll notice that if you add up to 34, 24, and 6, that doesn't add up to 47. So what's happening is we're actually seeing multiple data visualization tools on some of the job postings.
And Dustin, this really, not to cut you off there, but it really makes sense then that data storytelling is increasing, right? Because if visualization is a bigger thing, we're showing what's happening. Well, now you have to explain what it is, right? Right now you create some beautiful charts, some beautiful visualizations, right? But what are we doing? We're now explaining, we're telling the story of the data. So as visualization increases, you can imagine that storytelling will also increase, which again just means that's just good communication skill. We're seeing that these skills that are required are much more accessible than what it may feel. It can sound scary. You see these skills. I don't know if I can learn code. I don't know if I can do this. I'm older and I'm starting late. But you can tell a story. A lot of people tell stories. And that's really what it is understanding the information and then presenting that in a clear, concise way to help people understand what's happening and what actions to take afterwards.
Totally. Yeah, that is a great point. Just to show it real quickly, the top 5, if we combined PowerPoint and data storytelling, like Terril was just talking about, here's the top 5. SQL, and then again, combining all the data viz tools into one. Data viz is number 2. Excel is number 3. Stats number 4. And then what sneaks in is actually 21% of positions mentioned either PowerPoint or data storytelling or both. And so the data storytelling data point came in there in this last report. So we've got, getting the data up here. And I think this is an important distinction, for those that are learning about kind of what do all these things do and what do all these things mean. But with SQL, we're getting the data. You can get the data using SQL. Data visualization in Excel, you can create a story with those two, right? Same thing with stats. It helps create the story around the data. And then here you're telling the story. So we're getting the data, we're creating an analysis, we're drawing out insights, and then we're telling the story with it. And that's what I see in these top 5.
Nope, I definitely agree with you, Dustin. That's where communication is key. And working on communication skills, which is a soft skill, is really where the hard skills now will get the power. Because if we can't tell people what the data is saying, it doesn't have the same impact. And impact, of course, is how you continue to progress forward in your data job and your career and stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, so I've got 2 minutes left on this session. I'm going to go through these very quickly, and then we will share these out to the Data Career Summit LinkedIn page. Here, what I created a little heat map here of the skills mentioned by the seniority of positions. So we've got the skills we were just talking about, the seniority of the position that listed them, and how frequently they were mentioned, given the seniority level. SQL and data viz, pretty consistent throughout. Excel is really common in entry-level roles. Industry experience tends to creep in as a requirement as you move up into more senior roles. The general stats and stats tool knowledge was relatively consistent throughout. And just another call out is that I excluded management purposely from some of the previous views because it's only specific to the more senior roles, but many manager and director level roles do require it. So that's a consideration. If you want to be in one of those senior roles, you might want to think about how you can start to lead a team directly or indirectly now. And then I did put together a similar heat map around degree requirements by the seniority level. You can take a look at that when we publish it out after the event. Also, the years of experience that were asked for based upon the seniority level. About 2 years on average for an analyst position. Now, there were many positions that were 0 or 1. This is just an average. And then there were some that were 5 and so on. Average was 2 years. For a management or senior analyst role, it was around 4 to 5 years experience. And then, 7+ for a director role. But the one thing, Terril and I were talking about this, this isn't this isn't really that many years between analyst to director level. So something to keep in mind if you're starting out. Positions that don't require a degree overall across all the positions I looked at, it was about 31% this last time. That did dip slightly, but is still up above the pre-pandemic level. If we think back to the last summit, we saw 48% of the positions in the data set had a remote work option. And I asked a question in the chat, what percentage of those do we think are going to have a remote work option when we come back together today, right now? The crowdsourced prediction was 60%. So when I put that question out, everyone thought this was going to 60%. I'll admit, myself included, I thought the trend was continuing. Did you, Terril?
We all did. We all thought it would.
Right? There was just a lot of momentum around this. What happened in reality? In reality, it actually dipped to 34%. And a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of commentary out on LinkedIn and social media about this. I did expect now to see this with the hindsight, benefit of hindsight. But unfortunately, quite a dramatic dip for those that want remote roles, but still a third. And there were a lot of hybrid options out there. A lot of discussion we can have on that. The last thing I will touch on is a new part of the data jobs report is salary ranges for positions. So one thing that's been a trend in the last couple of years here are states requiring salary ranges in some cases to be posted on positions. 47 out of the 100 positions that I surveyed in this last roughly 6-month period had a salary range on it. And what I did was I put on a little scatter plot here, the low and high end of that salary range. And then what I did was I also colored the dots based upon whether it was kind of a lower seniority role or a higher seniority role. And for the manager level roles or above, the range looked like this: 112K on the low end, 190K on the high end. On the analyst side of things and senior analyst side of things, 85K was the average on the low end, 139K on the high end.
And that's why I know we have to wrap up, but just to
go ahead, Terril,
say
please.
with this, what's really cool about all of these charts, it really shows the progression that you can have in the data space. So if you combine this chart with the chart that we just saw in regards to the average years it takes to move forward to a new position, that aligns with the salary expectations here. So within a very short period of time, right, you can start at a very high floor. We see their low end for analysts at 85,000, which is a great floor. Everyone wish that was their floor. That's a fantastic floor. But then the entry to actually move forward isn't that long, but the ceiling is much higher. And that's incredible stuff. I mean, I think this whole data jobs report, if I was to say one giant message, it shows that it's possible to enter the field and it's possible to do well in the field. So if you are thinking about transitioning, trying to transition, or already in it trying to move forward, don't feel that it's impossible, that it's a ceiling you can't break through, because in reality, this report really shows how accessible it is for you to kind of keep moving and progressing.
Totally agree. Thank you, Terril, so much for joining this abbreviated session. Tons of data. We could probably talk Terrell, you and I for hours about
Oh,
this.
of course, of course.
Yeah, I think we talked for like 45 minutes. So
We've talked a long time.
if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Follow Terrell on LinkedIn as well. He's just a great guy to get to know and follow.